more things change, the more they stay the same. Boundaries shift, new players step in, but power always finds a place to rest its head. We fought and bled alongside the Russians. We should have known they'd hate us for it. History is written by the victor, and here I am thinking we'd won. But you bring down one enemy and they find someone even worse to replace him. Locations change, the rationale, the objective. Yesterday's enemies are today's recruits. Train them to fight alongside you, and pray they don't eventually decide to hate you for it too. Same shit, different day. You know what I'm looking for, Sergeant Foley. Keep your eyes open.
Got a new batch hitting the pit today, sir. I'll send you the best I find.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we dive into the philosophy of characters from video games to TV shows to movies, etc., etc. So in today's video, we're going to be going over the philosophy of the character known as General Shepard from the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the second game. So as always, we're not going to waste any time. So always, if you do like content on the channel, of course, subscribe and hit the notification bell as well too. So of course, let us go on ahead and let us get started. General Shepard, a central figure in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, is a character whose philosophy encapsulates themes of sacrifice, nationalism, and moral ambiguity. He's a man driven not merely by a desire for victory, but by an almost Nietzschean will to power, seeing himself as the architect of a future where America reclaims its global dominance at any cost. Through his actions and decisions, Shepard serves as a study in how ideology can corrupt, justify betrayal, and ultimately consume the one who wields it. General Shepard is emblematic of the necessary evil trope, a leader willing to undertake morally reprehensible actions for what he perceives to be the greater good. To understand his philosophy, one must view him not as a villain in the traditional sense, but as a tragic figure, a man whose ideals and methods lead him to a self imposed exile from conventional morality. He operates under the belief that survival and dominance require not just strategy, but an unflinching willingness to sacrifice others, even his own men. This makes him an anti hero in a narrative where loyalty, deception, and vengeance collide. What makes Shepard such a compelling character is not simply his portrayal, but the underlying logic he uses to justify it. He's not a monster without reason, but a man with conviction so strong that they blind him to the humanity of those around him. His story forces players to confront unsettling questions. Is there a point where the ends justify the means? And if so, who decides where that line lies?
We are the most powerful military force in the history of man. Every fight is our fight. Because what happens over here matters over there. We don't get to sit one out. Learning to use the tools of modern warfare is the difference between the prospering of your people and utter destruction. We can't give you freedom, but we can give you the know-how to acquire it. And that, my friends, is worth more than a whole army base of steel. Sure, it matters who's got the biggest stick, but it matters a hell of a lot more who's swinging it. This is a time for heroes, a time for legends. History is written by the victors. Let's get to work.
Shepard's worldview is deeply rooted in a hyper nationalistic ideology. For him, the United States is not just a nation, but an ideal worth preserving at any cost. Following the loss of 30,000 men in a devastating surprise attack, Shepard's commitment to American supremacy intensifies. His actions are driven by a belief that his country must never be seen as weak, lest its enemies exploit that perception. So, nationalists all argue that nations possess unique cultural identities that deserve protection. By fostering a sense of national identity, nationalism helps to preserve cultural heritage, traditions, and language. And when it comes to self determination, the principle of self determination suggests that nations have the right to govern themselves. Nationalists believe that a nation should have autonomy over its own affairs, free from foreign interference. And nationalism can provide a sense of belonging and shared purpose, fostering social cohesion and solidarity within a nation. And some nationalists even argue that national unity and pride can stimulate economic growth and development. A strong national identity can inspire citizens to work together for the common good. And the moral considerations. While nationalism can have positive side effects, it is also important to consider its potential moral pitfalls, such as exclusion and discrimination, which nationalism can lead to the exclusion of minority groups and the discrimination against those who do not conform to the dominant national identity, and militarism and aggression. Extreme forms of nationalism can promote aggressive foreign policies and militarism, leading to conflict and war. Authoritarianism. Nationalism can be used to justify authoritarian regimes and the suppression of dissent. And ethical relativism. A strong national identity, can sometimes lead to a form of ethical relativism, where the moral standards of one nation are seen as superior to those of others. So, in contemporary philosophy, debates about nationalism often revolve around issues such as multiculturalism, globalization, and human rights. Some philosophers argue that the rise of globalization has diminished the importance of national identity, while others maintain that nationalism remains a powerful force in the world. One of the key challenges facing contemporary nationalism is to reconcile the desire for national identity with the need for global cooperation and human rights. It is possible to be a proud nationalist while also recognizing the value of diversity and human rights. And by promoting a form of nationalism that is inclusive, tolerant, and respectful of others, it is possible to harness the positive aspects of national identity while avoiding its negative consequences. This brand of nationalism is not merely patriotic fervor, but an absolutist doctrine. Shepard's philosophy echoes real world debates about American exceptionalism and the lengths to which a nation should go to maintain global power. To Shepard, there are no innocents in the theater of war, only those who advance or hinder America's agenda. This uncompromising view creates a dangerous precedent where any atrocity can be rationalized as a necessary evil.
Yesterday you were a soldier on the front lines, but today, front lines are history. Uniforms are relics. The war rages everywhere, and there will be casualties. This man, Makarov, is fighting his own war, and he has no rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or a country or any set of ideals. He trades blood for money. He's your new best friend. You don't want to know what it's cost already to put you next to him. It will cost you a piece of yourself. It will cost nothing compared to everything you'll save.
Shepard operates within a framework of moral relativism, where traditional notions of right and wrong are supplanted by pragmatism. For him, war is a gray zone where rules are malleable and morality is a luxury reserved for peacetime. His betrayal of Task Force 141 is not an impulsive act of evil, but a calculated move to consolidate power and further his objectives. Now, the gray zone is a strategic space between peace and war, characterized by ambiguous actions and intentions, and encompasses a wide range of tactics, including cyber attacks, economic coercion, propaganda, and hybrid warfare. These tactics often fall below the traditional threshold of armed conflicts, making it difficult to apply traditional notions of just war theory and more relativism and the ethics of war. So, Moral relativism can be applied to the ethics of war in several several ways. Cultural relativism. So this perspective, it suggests that moral judgments are relative to a particular culture or society. In the context of war, this could mean that what is considered morally permissible in one culture may be considered morally reprehensible in another. For example, the use of certain weapons or tactics may be justified in one culture but condemned in another. And historical relativism. This perspective suggests that moral judgments are relative to a particular historical period. In the context of war, this could mean that what was considered morally permissible in the past may no longer be considered morally permissible today. For example, the use of certain weapons or tactics may have been considered acceptable in the past, but are now considered morally reprehensible. Individual relativism. This perspective suggests that moral judgments are relative to the individual. In the context of war, this could mean that what one person considers morally permissible may be considered morally reprehensible by another. And the challenges of moral relativism is, for one, the difficulty in determining moral standards. In the gray zone where actions may be ambiguous and intentions unclear, it can be difficult to determine what moral standards should apply. If moral judgments are relative, it may be difficult to condemn certain actions as morally wrong. And the risk of moral license. Moral relativism could be used to justify unethical behavior, particularly in situations where the lines between peace and war are blurred. For example, a state might use cyber attacks to undermine a rival state, arguing that such actions are morally permissible within its own cultural or historical context. Undermining international law. International law is based on shared moral principles. If moral judgments are relative, it could undermine the authority of international law and make it more difficult to hold states accountable for their actions. And the middle ground. So a middle ground with moral universalism and contextualism. While moral relativism offers a useful tool for understanding cultural and historical differences, it is important to recognize that there are certain moral principles that are universally valid. These principles, such as the prohibition of torture and genocide, are based on fundamental human values that transcend cultural and historical differences. A more nuanced approach to the ethics of war involves a combination of moral universalism and contextualism. This approach recognizes the importance of universal moral principles, while also acknowledging that these principles must be applied in specific contexts. In the gray zone, it is important to consider the particular circumstances of each situation and to weigh the potential benefits and harms of different courses of action. So, this philosophy is not without precedent. History is replete with leaders who justify their actions through similar reasoning. Shepard embodies the Machiavellian principle that it is better to be feared than loved, particularly in times of conflict. His willingness to burn bridges, both literally and figuratively, underscores his belief that survival trumps sentimentality.
Gentlemen, the missiles vector puts it en route to the East Coast. We will lose the White House. We've rebuilt it before. We'll rebuild it again.
Casualties?
Possibly 30 to 50,000. Depends on the exact location of the detonation. All systems will go down.
General Shepard, you warned us. We should have listened.
When they speak of this moment, we will not be the ones who stood guard while America died. One man is responsible for all this. Makarov must be brought to light.
Whatever you need, General. You've got a blank check.
Shepard sees himself as a sacrificial hero, a man burdened with making the hard decisions that others cannot. He doesn't view his betrayal as a failure of character, but as evidence of his resolve. This kind of perspective is rooted in a kind of hubris, where he assumes the mantle of moral authority, believing only he himself has the clarity to guide the nation through its darkest hour. The roots of the sacrificial hero complex are often traced back to childhood experiences. Individuals who grew up in a dysfunctional or chaotic environments may develop a sense of responsibility for the well-being of others. They may believe that their own happiness is secondary to the happiness of those around them. Additionally, societal expectations and cultural norms can reinforce this behavior, particularly in cultures that value self-sacrifice and martyrdom. The motivations behind the sacrificial hero complex are multifaceted. Some individuals may genuinely derive satisfaction from helping others, experiencing a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Others may seek validation and admiration using their self sacrifice as a way to garner attention and approval in some cases. In some cases, the complex may stem from a desire to control or manipulate situations, as those who sacrifice themselves often hold significant power over others. And manifestations and consequences. So, the sacrificial hero complex can manifest in a variety of ways, including people pleasing, martyrdom, self neglect, and codependency. People pleasing. This is constantly striving to meet the needs and expectations of others, even at the expense of one's own well being. Martyrdom. This is seeking out opportunities to suffer or sacrifice for the sake of others, often for the purpose of gaining sympathy or admiration. Self neglect. This is prioritizing the needs of others to the point of neglecting one's own physical and emotional health. And codependency. This is relying on others for validation and approval, often leading to unhealthy relationships and a lack of personal autonomy. The consequences of the sacrificial hero complex can be far reaching. Individuals with this complex may experience chronic stress, anxiety, depression, and burnout, and they may also struggle with low self esteem and a lack of personal boundaries. In extreme cases, the complex can lead to self destructive behaviors, such as substance abuse or risky relationships. This complex is evident in General Shepard's rhetoric, which often frames his actions as necessary for the greater good. However, this mindset it blinds him to the consequences of his actions, particularly the human cost. So Shepard's philosophy, though pragmatic, is ultimately self-serving. He sacrifices others not out of altruism, but to validate his own vision of what America should be.
Over. Roger. Get him hard on that belt. Make sure they're down. Roger, I'm on it. Coming around, heading 250. Roger, I got him lined up. Gold Eagle's on the ground. Watch for snipers on thermal. Over.
You have the DSL. We've got it, sir.
Good. That's one less loose end.
Area is sanitized. All targets destroyed. Solid copy. No movement detected. 2-6 going into holding pattern.
In Shepard's philosophy, betrayal is not a moral failing, but a strategic tool. His decision to turn on tasks 141 is predicated on the belief that their loyalty is expendable in the grand scheme of his mission. For Shepard, trust is a commodity to be exploited rather than a virtue to be upheld. So, when it comes to betrayal as a strategic tool, in many ways, when it comes to being a strategic tool, it comes down to breaking the status quo, building loyalty, manipulating perceptions, and testing loyalty. With breaking the status quo, to initiate significant change, a leader may need to disrupt established norms and power structures. Betraying expectations and norms can shock the system and create an opportunity for innovation. And building loyalty. By betraying a rival or a former ally, a leader can demonstrate their loyalty to a new group or cause. This can foster a sense of unity and purpose among followers. Manipulating perceptions. A well timed betrayal can be used to manipulate public opinion. By framing a betrayal as a necessary sacrifice or a strategic move, a leader can shape the narrative and gain public support. And testing loyalty. Betrayal can be used to identify those who are truly loyal and those who are merely opportunistic. By putting followers in a difficult position, a leader can assess their commitment and trustworthiness. And the ethical considerations. While betrayal can be a powerful tool, it raises significant ethical concerns. Betrayal often involves breaking trust, which can damage relationships and erode social cohesion. Leaders who use betrayal as a tactic must weigh the potential benefits against the ethical costs. So, two examples to provide for this can be Julius Caesar and Steve Jobs. So, Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon and subsequent civil war can be seen as a betrayal of the Roman Republic. However, his actions ultimately led to the establishment of the Roman Empire. And for Steve Jobs, his relentless pursuits of innovation often involved firing employees and making difficult decisions that alienated colleagues. However, his leadership style transformed Apple into one of the most successful companies in the world. And the modern applications. In contemporary leadership, betrayal can manifest in various forms, such as corporate restructuring, political leadership, and military leadership. When it comes to corporate restructuring, layoffs and mergers can be perceived as betrayals by employees who lose their jobs or see their roles change. Political leadership. Politicians may make promises during election campaigns that they later renege on, leading to accusations of betrayal. Military leadership. Commanders may order soldiers into dangerous situations, knowing that some may not return. So this aspect of Shepard's character, it aligns with a broader commentary on the nature of leadership in times of crisis. Shepard represents a leader who values outcomes over principles, a figure willing to betray allies to achieve his goals. While this makes him a formidable tactician, it also renders him fundamentally untrustworthy, a paradox that ultimately leads to his downfall.
5 years ago, I lost 30,000 men in the blink of an eye. And the world just fucking watched. Tomorrow, there will be no shortage of volunteers, no shortage of patriots. I know you understand.
Shepard's philosophy, while initially rooted in a desire to protect and empower his nation, gradually descends into tyranny. His actions reveal a man increasingly consumed by his own ideology, to the point where he becomes indistinguishable from the enemies he seeks to destroy. This descent is emblematic of a recurring theme in literature and history: the corrupting influence of power and the dangers of unchecked ambition. So, historical precedents and philosophical insights. So, throughout history, numerous civilizations have experienced periods of flourishing liberty and prosperity, only to later descend into tyrannical regimes. The Roman Republic, once a beacon of democratic ideals, evolved into an imperial dictatorship. Similarly, the French Revolution, initially driven by aspirations for liberty, equality, and fraternity, ultimately gave rise to the Napoleonic dictatorship. Philosophers such as Plato, Machiavelli, and more recently Karl Popper have offered profound insights into the mechanisms that can lead to such societal decline. Plato, in his Republic, outlined a cyclical theory of government, suggesting that democracies inevitably degenerate into tyranny. He argued that the pursuit of excessive liberty can lead to social chaos, which in turn paves the way for a strong man to seize power. Machiavelli, in his seminal work, The Prince, explored the tactics and strategies employed by tyrants to consolidate and maintain power. He emphasized the importance of fear and force in ensuring obedience, as well as the need to manipulate public opinion through propaganda and censorship. And Karl Popper, a 20th century philosopher, warned against the dangers of utopian thinking and the allure of totalitarian ideologies. He argued that the quest for a perfect society can lead to authoritarianism, as those in power seek to impose their vision on others, often through coercive means. And key factors. So, the key factors that contribute to tyranny are excessive liberty, decline of virtue, concentration of power, economic inequality, and external threats. So, excessive liberty. As Plato observed, excessive liberty can lead to social disorder and a breakdown of law and order. When individuals prioritize their own desires over the common good, it can create a climate of instability and conflict. Decline of virtue. A decline in moral and civic virtues such as honesty, integrity, and public mindedness can erode the foundations of a free society. When people prioritize personal gain over the well being of others, it can lead to corruption and abuse of power. Concentration of power. The concentration of power in the hands of a few individuals or a single institution can create opportunities for abuse and oppression. This can occur through the centralization of government, the suppression of dissent, and the erosion of checks and balances. Economic inequality. Economic inequality can exacerbate social tensions and create a climate of resentment and distrust. When a small elite controls the majority of wealth and resources, it can lead to a sense of injustice and a desire for radical change. External threats. External threats, such as war or economic crisis, can create a sense of urgency and fear, which can be exploited by authoritarian leaders to consolidate power. In times of crisis, people may be willing to sacrifice their liberties in exchange for security. So, when it comes to the role of the individual, while societal factors play a significant role in the rise and fall of regimes, individual choices and actions also have a profound impact. By remaining vigilant, participating in civic life, and resisting the allure of simplistic solutions, individuals can help to preserve liberty and prevent the descent into tyranny. By the end of his arc, Shepard is not a hero or even an anti hero, but really a cautionary tale. His philosophy, though compelling in its logic, proves unsustainable in practice. The very principles he seeks to uphold, loyalty, strength, and honor, are undermined by his methods, leaving him isolated and ultimately defeated. General Shepard is a character whose philosophy forces us to grapple with uncomfortable truths about power, morality, and the human cost of ambition. He is a man who begins with noble intentions, but is undermined by his own hubris and the flawed logic of his beliefs. In seeking to protect his nation, he becomes a threat to it, embodying the very chaos he seeks to control. What makes Shepard truly tragic is that his philosophy is not without merit. There are moments when his arguments resonate, challenging the player to consider whether his actions, though extreme, are justified in the face of existential threats. However, it is this very ambiguity that makes him so compelling. A reminder that the line between hero and villain is often a matter of perspective. In the end, Shepard's legacy is one of caution. He reminds us that even the most principled ideologies can become dangerous when pursued without restraint. His story is a testament to the complexity of human nature and the perilous intersection of power and morality, a lesson that remains as relevant today as it was when Modern Warfare 2 first captivated audiences. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this video here today. And as always, always be smooth, always be steady, and always be aggressive. Peace.